Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today is another beautiful day, a beautiful day in which we're going to talk about the Spiritist Therapy. There's so much to learn, there's so much to share, and we are going to have here passages from the very spirit authors, Emmanuel, André Luiz, and others, that really clarify and give us a new understanding about how Spiritism can reach out to your heart, to your family, and to society as a whole. It's very transformative. It's a new experience in our lives, and Spiritism has much, much to offer. And also to discuss this and give an example how powerful and universal this message and the practice is, we have here with us Greg and Tanya Stewart directly from Sacramento, California. They are here to talk about their work in the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group. And there's a lot for us to know about great things that are happening over there. Right now, we'd like to remind you that in a week, the Ben Franklin Spiritist Society is going to sponsor a great event on healing. We're talking about healing. We're talking about therapy. They're going to talk about healing as well. We'll be there as well. And they are going to be sponsoring an event dedicated, a 2-day event, dedicated to healing according to Spiritism, and much, much more. We have speakers from different places in the United States, including Brazil in itself. And if you want more information about it, it's going to happen on May 25th and the 26th in Massachusetts, and you can just log on to www.brfranklinss.org. brfranklinss.org, and get to know more about the information. And, you know, each and every show accumulates beautiful and wonderful information for us to bring relief, comfort, enlightenment, inspiration, nourishment for our souls. So next week, we will be here talking to Reverend Herrick, who is going to talk about one of her main expertise, which is healing dysfunctional families. Who doesn't need? Are our families dysfunctional? If you don't know, if you want to know what to do, if you find out it is, talk to us here. You can send a question. Many people send questions before the program, or your comments, or live during the show next week, Healing Dysfunctional Families. It's a true opportunity for us to talk to Dr. and Reverend Karen Herrick, who is going to deal with the spiritual and psychological, social aspects of dysfunctional families. And Spiritism has a lot to share also with you in that regard. Today, as we talk about the Spiritist Therapy, you may be asking, Vanessa, but is it like a traditional therapy? No, when we use the word therapy, it's just to classify the class of practice, the type of practice that is done. It's therapeutic. We as psychologists and scientists, we really need to not label, but create a proper term, just like Kardec did at the time, to classify the nature of these practices. And the practice that is done in Spiritism is truly therapeutic. It's for the healing of the soul. Kardec himself was not unaware of this issue. In the Spirit's book, in question 556, he actually asked the illuminated spirits the following question: do certain individuals really possess the gift of healing by simple touch? This was 1857, just telling us it's not something new. It happened all the time, but we wanted a confirmation from the spirits if it's really natural that some individuals have this gift of healing, as Kardec says. The answer of the great minds of the beyond was, their magnetic power may act to that extent when it is aided by purity of sentiments and an ardent desire to do good, for then good spirits come to their aid. It is necessary, however, to distrust the way stories are told by the very gullible or enthusiastic individuals who are always ready to see the miraculous in the simplest and most natural things. One must always distrust the self-interested claims of persons who exploit credulity for their own profit. This answer certainly can be broken down in greater understanding. First, they tell us there is a magnetic power, meaning there is something physiological that is released, the ectoplasm of the person, that is the healing medium. We don't like to say healers here because only God is the healer. We like to say healing mediums because in Spiritism we understand we're not healers ourselves. God is the one healing, and He heals through us, meaning the medium. So the healing mediums may release their own fluid, but it's also potentiated, empowered by the company of the spirit guides. And if you want to know more about the conditions in which this partnership between us and the greater spirits happen, just go to the medium's book, item 341. You're going to read the conditions in which we need to adjust ourselves to really attune with the higher spirits. Here they talk about the purity of sentiments and a strong desire to do good. No self-interest, no hidden agenda, no extra interest in regards to any kind of profit. But then the answer of Kardec also brings to us something quite interesting. Everything that happens in regards to the healing of the physical body is not supernatural. As Kardec says, there is nothing supernatural. That is just the law of God. It's natural. Probably it's supernatural for us because we don't understand many things. But for those who already understand, it's in the laws of God. There is no miracle. There is just a natural law of life that is taking place and developing itself. That's how natural we in Spiritism look at all of these events. We have just come back from Brazil, and we visited 3 different states, Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and Minas Gerais, where Chico Xavier was born and worked most of his life. In each and every place, you find great works, like everywhere else in Brazil, for example, and Spiritist centers operating what people would call, quote-unquote, miracles, just through the Spiritist Therapy. But we know it's not a miracle. It's just nature. When you ask about the Spiritist Therapy, you may be asking what it encompasses. It encompasses first prayer. Prayer is the first step into the therapy, and you can read the Gospel According to Spiritism in its last chapter, Collection of Prayers. There you find the ins and outs of prayers and how it's the first requirement to really get into this therapeutic aspect of prayer. Then we talk about the famous and so-called passes. In England, it's called healing. And no matter the name, it's about kind of the laying on of hands, kind of, because there are differences as well. And we're going to talk about the Spiritist conduct regarding the passes according to André Lewis. We have this message here with us. Later on, we're going to read to you, so you have more guidance regarding how we operate it. Then we also combine with the offering of the spiritually magnetized water, and this water physically is spring water basically, or tap water for some people, depending if they don't have access to spring water. And the spirits add remedies, vitamins, so people, when they take it, they can really go another level in their healing. Also, we have the fraternal counseling, which is so important. That conversation in which we not only welcome the person who is coming in, but we also, with the guidance of the spirits, we accommodate new advice so people can direct themselves into their pathway to deeper healing, the healing of the soul. And finally, something that is very unique to Spiritism because of its framework is the work of disobsession. Oftentimes, our diseases are simply a byproduct of our spirit company, the spirits that we attract in our daily lives. And Spiritism has a beautiful work that is very well structured, very organized. It's called disobsession, and it's pretty much what we call in England spirit release therapy. It's about spirit attachment and the release of these spirits. It's very universal. You know, from ancient times, even the shamans have been doing this work of spirit release. But in Spiritism, we have a teamwork operating in that regard. Not only that, but we also have the acknowledgement that actually the higher spirits are the ones operating and doing everything. If you ask whether or not we are searching for the healing of the body, we would say no. The healing of the body is a byproduct of the healing of the soul. In Spiritism, we understand that each and every physical disturbance is a consequence of an emotional, spiritual imbalance. So Spiritism looks for the root of the problem, takes care of it, and helps at that end. And if any physical manifestation happens, it is basically a natural consequence of that adjustment. Because as we know, dear friend, the healing of the body is just temporary. Sooner or later, we are all going to cross over and go back to our spiritual home. So the goal here is the immortal healing, the healing of the soul. We're going to give a short break. You're going to listen to a beautiful message that is going to set the tone of the program. The Kingdom of God is at Hand by Emmanuel. Soon after the break, we have here with us Greg and Tanya Stewart from the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group, Sacramento, California.
The kingdom of God is at hand. Many times said the Lord, the kingdom of God is at hand. Until today, thousands of people have waited for its arrival through spectacular exterior events. Many expected through unspeakable cataclysms and feed their imagination with ghostly scenes incompatible with the divine mercy which presides our destinies. Thunders rumble in the firmament. Tsunamis and earthquakes. Mutinous crowds causing ruin. Flammable fluids in the atmosphere, turning it into devouring fire. Withering bombs destroying entire nations. Those people usually count on the uncanny and the fantastic so that they can feel they are at the gateway of the great change. There is no doubt that such catastrophic events may take place at any moment in people's experience in the field of nature. However, far from meaning the kingdom of God, they only reveal the need for a new battle, with a rougher work to be done by those who take part in the evolutional boards of humanity. The kingdom of God is at hand, yes it is, but before all else, in our capacity to build it inside us through the heaven that we can offer to our neighbor soul. Let's attend to the accomplishments of the duties life brings to us, helping as much as we can for the victory of the good by following the love the Lord bequeathed to us, and we will reach, as early as possible, the celestial atmosphere for us and for others. That's why Jesus likewise was adamant and fair when stated, "When they say to you that the kingdom of God is here or there, do not believe them, because, in truth, the kingdom of God is within you." Emmanuel. Psychography, Chico Xavier. Free translation.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Available for purchase, the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec Radio shows 3 times a day. Also beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, talking about the Spiritist Therapy, who doesn't need it? Who is not looking for healing, for some form of comfort, for relief? And right now we're going to discuss how this universal practice of Spiritism and the Spiritist practice actually led Greg Stewart and Tanya Stewart to put together what they call the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group in Northern California. They are here with us, and we're delighted to have them here at Kardec Radio today. Thank you so much, Greg and Tanya, for being with us today.
Good morning, Vanessa, and it's truly a delight and an honor to be on your show. As you know, Tanya and I are both big fans of the show, and we've learned so much from the incredible guests that you've had on the show over the past couple of years.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you so much, Greg. And, by the way, we need to share with our listeners, probably by now they're like, I know this voice. And that's true, because Greg Stewart in the past helped a whole lot doing voiceover for Divaldo Franco, the great Spiritist medium, and also Raul Teixeira, and also Chico Xavier. There is a single Spiritist CD nowadays with Chico Xavier's messages, named Enlightening Messages, and you can buy it at the Spiritist side of Baltimore's bookstore, online, ssbaltimore.org, and Greg is the very voice that you're listening right now. It was a great experience, right, Greg, at the time?
It was an incredible experience, and I know that, you were there, and we both felt the presence of the good spirits in the room when the recordings were made, and I carry that in my heart today. And we're continuing now to work a little bit more and do some more now that I'm resettled here in beautiful Sacramento, California.
That's great. And it's so powerful. Kirsten DeMello is here, and she's sending us a message saying, "Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's great to hear your voice." So it's really great. And I remember Daniel was there as well, helping us, and he's also a witness of the great moments we've experienced and how the spirits really helped produce these CDs. And people can access all the CDs we're talking about at the Spirit Side of Baltimore's website, ssbaltimore.org, and buy them because they are really, really helpful. And Tanya, How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Vanessa. I'm so happy to talk to you and your listeners. And I want to apologize for my English. I hope they can understand me. I have been here since 2008, and I started to learn English in 2009. I never ever studied English before, and I really apologize and hope you understand me.
No apologies, because it's coming from the heart and your English is so beautiful. Who am I to say it, because I'm also an immigrant, but I say, for me, it's beautiful. So
thank you so
it's
much.
very clear, Tanya. And it's beautiful also because Greg was born here in the United States and Tanya was born in Brazil. Great combination. But we know at some point in life you met somewhere in this planet. Where was it?
That's correct, Vanessa. I met Tanya on one of my many trips to see the well-known healer, John of God. Of course, we know him as João Teixeira. And since he appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, I think now twice, he's become quite well-known in the United States. But I first went there in 2003. And I was taking a friend who had been diagnosed with cervical cancer. I was just accompanying her, literally to help prop her up on the airplane because she was so sick. And she had an amazing healing that began at the Casa. And so at the time I was living closer to the East Coast, and that's how I met you. And so I started making frequent trips to the Casa because I had contact with the spirits at the Casa, and predominantly the first time from the spirit of King Solomon, who asked me to go sit in what they called the current room and help the healer with the healings. And, of course, this was quite a shock for me, to first of all, to hear a spirit talking to me, and then to experience this mediumship, which I did not know at the time that I had. And, of course, we could have a whole conversation about the way in which traditionally American culture has not exactly supported mediumship. So a lot of folks here in the States could have different levels of mediumship. Of course, we're all mediums to some degree or another, and not even know it. And that was the case with me. So I was enamored with the Casa. I'll have to say it changed my life. But it was not the man, John of God. It was mediumship and the contact with spirits. And then shortly after I returned, I discovered Spiritism. And as you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to study with some of the spiritists there in Bethesda, Maryland, actually some of the same spiritists who created the United States Spiritist Council at that time. And so I kept going back, and it was in December in 2005 that I met Tanya, and Tanya was there because she was recovering from a near-fatal car accident, and I'll let Tanya talk a little bit about that.
How was it, Tanya?
Yeah, my gosh, in talking about healing, I am a proof of a great, great healing. I have a car accident in 2004, and my car flipped over through the bridge inside the river, and I broke my back really serious. And the doctor said I could not walk anymore. They gave me a document to sign. And before the surgery, but the night before, I have to wait 24 hours because the doctor did not know how to open me. And I have the great experience with Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, who came to me and with a group of spirits, and they did a spiritual surgery. And they said, tell the doctors, you will walk through the door in 5 days. And that I did. I was a miracle. The doctor said it was a miracle. And after 2 months, I fell and I hit my back on a corner of the concrete. And the screws, I have 60 screws in my back, and bent over, and I could not walk anymore, and I was in bed for 2 months when John of God materialized in my bedroom. And when he appeared to me and he said, come where I am, and you be get healed. And I looked for him, and I did not know him. And the second, third time he appeared to me, and I have a courage to ask him where you are. And he opened his arm and showed the white and blue walls on a house. And I saw thousands of people wear white clothes and spoke in different languages. And I cried because I said, God, I did not have money to go to another country, and I will be here on my bed. And my mother started to talk with the neighbors about this guy appearing to me so many times and showed the house in white and blue walls. And my mother's neighbor said, could be John of God in Abadiania. And it was just 3 hours and a half from my house. I went there, and then the entities told me, you are a medium, you have to work. And you sit in the current, you do not pray for yourself, you pray for others. And he showed me more. I think that they have more than 30 people in a wheelchair. And he said, they need prayers. They need help. You sitting there and pray for them. And in 2 months, I was completely healed. My screws as a platinum. Platinum. And come normal again. I have MRI before I went to John of God. And I have MRI after my healing, who showed the screws was completely normal.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really a blessing, right?
That is a blessing. And since that, John of God invited me to serve the house, working beside him. And the entities told me at that time, we will serve God in another land. And they said really clear to me, you are going to California. And know, when I met Greg was living here in Washington, D.C., close to you.
Yes.
And then we are here in Sacramento, California.
Well, it's safe to say, when I met you, Vanessa, I would have never thought I'd be living back in California at the time, and met a Brazilian in Brazil who didn't speak English, and then married her and brought her back to the country. And now we have our life is basically centered around our healing circle, Brazilian spiritual healing. And so if you say yes to God and the good spirits, you can go on a path that you might not expect. But I'll have to say I highly recommend saying yes.
Exactly. I remember the very steps you guys walked from being here, meeting, and then everything. And it's an incredible journey. And the best part of it, as you said yes to God, no hesitation, and finally opened this charitable nonprofit group called Brazilian Spiritual Healing that is really becoming ever more popular in Northern California in general and helping so many people. In this program today, Greg and Tanya, we're talking about the use of Spiritist tools like the passes, the spiritually magnetized water, the counseling, these obsession meetings. So what does the Brazilian Spiritist group do?
Well, to give you some backdrop, it is everything that we do is based on spiritual work that is outlined and documented in the doctrine and the books of Spiritism. Now, with that said, we have a non-denominational group. Within our group, we have Spiritists, we have Spiritualists, we have Jews, we have some Hindus, we have Buddhism, we have Catholics. Everyone comes, and we have even various prayers. Some are more non-denominational than others. And, however, not to offend anyone, of all the different philosophies in religions that I've become acquainted with, and I've been studying quite a bit since 2003, I'll have to say that there is no better source of information about the spirit world and mediumship than the Kardec books. And when you go and you look through the history of the great spiritualists and spiritists and great leaders in the spiritual, you'll find that they've all, in some way or another, had some contact or some study of the doctrine of Spiritism.
Wow.
So we consider our group a Spiritist group. However, we remain independent so that we're allowed to do the various forms of hands-on healing, which in some circles is controversial. And we don't need to get into that, but what we try to do is we try to do our healing circle with respect to the laws here in the state of California, as well as the universal laws, the laws of God and the laws of spirit. And so while it might seem a mixture to some folks that come, others that know Spiritism will recognize what we're doing and say, okay, yeah, we understand what we're doing. And so what we do is we don't have a permanent location. We are hosted in the city of Citrus Heights, Sacramento, California, the first and third Wednesday of every month. And we also go and we're hosted by a Unity Church in Grass Valley, California, Unity Church in the Gold Country, and we're hosted by that church on the second and fourth Wednesdays. So every week we're doing this. And in order to support the spiritual work, there's a group that's formed around us of people that we call Friends of the Current. And they sit in sort of a circular fashion where we're doing our healing work, and they help us maintain the energy and the vibrations. And in that group, we offer frequent opportunities for education, principally around the Spiritist doctrine, whether it be how to give Spiritist passes, whether it be inner reform, everything that we can offer. Because
mediumship class.
Mediumship as well. Because, we certainly feel a responsibility, because many people that are joining our group also are starting to have their gifts of mediumship opened. So what we do is based around the phenomena of mediumship. Tanya and I both volunteer in the group as trance mediums, which, as most of your listeners would know, that's where the spirit stands next to you and contacts you through your perispirit. And then many times you can take on the characteristics of the voice, the personality of the spirit. Now, with that said, why do we do trance mediumship? Based on my experience, now Tanya may have a different opinion, but based on my study, and also some of your listeners on your show, and I'll have to pat Dr. Greenfield on the back for his book that he wrote, Spirits with Scalpels, from his 30-year tour of Brazil, which I learned about on your show, by the way. He basically was able to go and explain the phenomenon of this healing mediumship of Brazil, particularly related to the healers that do the physical surgeries. But with that said, after I learned about Brazil, I began learning about the Philippines, some of the other great healers in the world, our own healers here in the United States, and all of what we call the great and miraculous healings. Of course, as Spiritists, we don't believe in miracles. We believe everything happens under God's law and universal laws. But the incredible healings all seem to take place if you get the healer to personally admit it to you with the help of a highly evolved spirit.
Exactly.
I don't think that we as humans, we can donate our magnetism or our ectoplasm or our vital energy or our prana or our chi, whatever term you choose to use. We can donate this. However, most of us aren't able to see, some more than others, define things that need to be adjusted in the body, the dark energies that need to be released, where to add energy. Some can see better than others, but I would rather trust the highly evolved spirits to make these healing decisions than my own intuition. And we walk in a path of some of the great spiritists and some of the great spiritual folks in history who started out as skeptics. Allan Kardec, of course, was sent as a skeptic to examine spiritism or the spiritual phenomena back in Paris, France. And he didn't believe, and then all of a sudden not only was he a believer, but he helped to create this incredible doctrine. Well, we've had many other folks in history who didn't believe as well, who believed. We had John Dee from England in the 1600s, who was a friend of Queen of England, who was the greatest scholar at the time, the greatest private library, who used magic, but not magic in the sense that we know, but the magic was the ability for him to make a connection with the higher spirits, because as one of the most educated men, he believed that he could not grow and learn without assistance from the higher spirits. So we trust the good spirits and the mentors of our house to make the decisions of the healing and to help and to facilitate the healing. And we just try to be good instruments. So that's why trance mediumship for us is the tool which we can work.
You know, Greg, as you're saying before, the importance of making it as universal as possible, including the prayers, is of the essence, as you said, regarding prayers and regarding, making everyone from different walks of life comfortable. Kardec, in a book that is not in English yet, but we published some parts of it in the Spiritist magazine, he talks about it, the importance of making it as broad as possible, so people from different walks of life, not only Christians, but people who are from different religious pathways, spiritual pathways, they also feel comfortable in our organization. So we truly understand that the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group is doing what is need to be done, making it as broad as possible for people who come from different walks of life, because the truth is universal and it's not tailored around a specific name or label. We're going to give a short break, Greg and Tanya, and when we come back, we have more about some parts of when we do the passes and we give the water to follow by the mediumistic disobsession meetings after the break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Come for the beautiful event sponsored by the British Union of the Spiritist Societies. It is the second British Spiritist Congress on May 11th and 12th at the Quakers Friends House in London, United Kingdom. For more information, please go to www.buss.org.uk.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Are you seeking a way to tap into more spiritual you? Try meditation. As the Spirit Joanne de Angelis says, meditation becomes an effective way to discipline the will. In the meditative state, you calm down your emotions and clarify your discernment, harmonizing your feelings. Take a listen to a clip from the CD entitled Health by Divaldo Franco and Joanne de Angelis.
So say this: I am life, and a triumphant life. Say it again, and once again. Say, I am happiness in life. Repeat it. I am fulfilled, and so I shall remain. Look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Again, look at yourself. You are irradiating His light. Breathe it. Hold it. Breathe out. Say to yourself, nothing of a disturbing nature deserves my attention.
If you want to listen to more, You can purchase your own copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org/bookstore.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're talking about Spiritist Therapy, and many people are excited about the fact that we have this therapy right here in the United States, also in England, in Canada, in Australia, so many parts of the world. It's not only in Brazil anymore, it's everywhere in the world. There are many, many groups, and if you want to find a group, you can go to the website of the International Spiritist Council and find a list of groups around the world. There are more than 35 countries already including the Spiritist groups and practices. You go to www.intercei.com, intersei.com, or you can also email Kardec Radio at kardec@kardecradio.com and ask us. We will direct you to the proper websites for you to find a group for you. You know, when we talk about the Spiritist practice, we mainly talk about prayer, passes, the spiritually magnetized water, the counseling, the disobsession meetings, or the mediumistic practice that also promotes a lot of healing. And when we talk about passes, there is a book by the Spirit Doctor André Luiz, the same Spirit Doctor that brought us No Solar and Life Goes On and many others. In this book, he talks about how we should proceed regarding the passes, the Spiritist conduct regarding the passes. He says quite clearly, when applying passes or other methods of spiritual therapeutics, avoid inquiring on results and never fear the exhaustion of the magnetic forces. Goodness helps without asking. This is very, very important, dear listener, because we do not ask for results. If you come to centers, we're never going to ask you, did you get healed? Or you're not doing a good job, etc. It's funny to say it, but it's quite true, because many people who work with healing around the world, they get deceived by the expectation of results. We don't. We don't even count. In Brazil alone, for example, many people ask, have you done statistics? I remember going to one of the best psychiatric hospitals in Brazil, which is located in the city of Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais. It's considered one of the best, not only because of the quality, because of the results. They combine traditional psychiatric treatment with the Spiritist therapy. And I remember being there, and people were asking me, Vanessa, get some statistics. You ask the people there, they say, we're not here to ask for results, but we know people get healed. And just like Jesus, he didn't, did do the math, like how many people got healed under me, etc. This is very important, as André Luiz is saying. And many centers experience the healings, and we are thankful to God. As Greg Stewart was saying before the break, nothing happens through us alone. It's always through the higher forces that are, in the name of God, operating upon us, because we're still very, very imperfect or perfectible to really make it ourselves. So, Greg and Tanya, when you guys work with the passes and the water, can you tell that, the setting in which you operate really brings new comfort to people? I'm not asking for results, just about the vibrational experiences that people report to you at the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group.
Yeah, for being a pass giver, we and our group, we have been to pass for a preparation, mental, emotional, and physical preparation. And in a moral, it is really important for all of us to be connected to the higher vibration. We have to be open to receive that energy and to transmit that energy for the people will be received. And we have been, as we know, in an energetical level. We have so many bodies, and astral, emotional, etherical bodies. And because our thoughts, we are not vigilant, we are not aware of our daily life and thoughts. We contaminate our soul, our aura, our chakras in so many ways. And when you come to the room to receive a healing, we asking people to be open, to be receptive to the divine energy will be conducted through the medium or to the past giver to you. And we tell them to be in prayer and be open and ask God, ask our beloved Jesus, the great healer of this planet. Ask them, be connected with the source of that energy, because we are just conductors of this divine energy. And this moment, we have to make this ambient to the people. When they walk inside the room, they will feel the difference. And we are all praying together because we are all together. And the moment we release that energy from the aura and the chakras start to speed so fast. Who is a clairvoyant? We were amazed with the chakras working. And they speed so fast and start to expose from inside to out all that negative thoughts, all the fears, the sadness, all that discomfort energy have been causing for them for so long. That is because so many people, when they receive just a simple quotation mark, passes energy, and they already feel so much better. It's like when you work so hard for the whole day, and it's in a hot, sunny day, and you go in a shower, and you feel so refreshed, so released, or when you are so hungry, and you eat, and you feel so full of energy. And that is what my comparison, when we receive that healing, connect with the spiritual level, connect with your guardian angel, your spiritual guide, and all the spirit to come to this moment. We have to prepare ourselves, our home, our place to receive that blessed entity we have been working with.
Vanessa, can I just take a couple minutes to explain to your listeners specifically what happens at one of our events? First of all, we have our events in two parts. There's a part where there are partitions where we have 3 to 4 massage tables set up. Around the tables in a semicircle, we have folks that we call the Friends of the Current that help us raise the energy. And then out in front of the partitions, we have the guests, and they come and sit. So when people come into the room, first they receive a pass from one of our pass givers, and we either have a separate room or area set aside where 3 or 4 people at a time will sit in a chair, and they'll close their eyes, and then the person will stand in front of them and give them a traditional Spiritist pass. This all happens in the backdrop of beautiful, soothing music that plays to help raise the vibration. Once everyone's received their pass and most of the people are there, then Tanya and I will both get up and give a brief introduction, tell a little bit about what we do, and then we'll read a message from one of the books. Many times it's from the Spirit's book, or principally the Gospel According to Spiritism, and then we'll make a comment on the passage. Sometimes we'll prepare a talk and give a short 20-minute talk, or we may have a guest speaker who may come in and give a 20-minute talk. And the whole time the spirits are working, and they're in the room with the folks. They've already received their passes. They've already had, to some degree, their chakras have been cleared. Then at that point, we'll lower the lights a little bit. And by the way, we lower our lights not because we're trying to hide in the dark corners or do anything we don't want people to see. We're very respectful of what the spiritualists term ectoplasm. which is a part of a mixture of, course, the human vital energy, and we can have a whole show about that. But ectoplasm seems to do better in lower light and also when the room is a little cooler. So we try to keep the room just a little cool and lower the lights. I'll then lead a short meditation, a non-denominational type meditation, which helps to raise the energy. Principally, it has to do with opening up the energy in and out of the body and the chakras in the hands. And this is something I was actually given directly by the spirits when I was in the Casa with John of God in 2003. So I'll lead the short meditation. Then after that, Tanya and I will both return behind the room divider where our people, our friends of the current, are sitting in the massage tables
and
await.
They're already prepared for.
And they've been preparing. And principally, we ask people at our groups, and when they come, to put both feet flat on the floor, not to cross their arms or their legs, and to remain seated with their palms facing upward. This is an open position to not block energy, whether they need to give or to receive. And so basically our events are intrinsic upon the success of our events are the good energy that our attendees share with us, their ability to clear their minds, their ability to remain open for giving and receiving energy. So we do everything we can to facilitate the comfort of creating this energetic environment. Then when we begin, Tanya or I will say prayers, some prayers that help us to get into the state where we can easily perform our trance mediumship and become good instruments. And usually her mentor, Dr. Paula, will come. And then once the spirits are manifested in trance mediumship, then we have folks that help us that will bring the people, sometimes 2, 3, or 4 at a time, and they'll lie down on one of the massage tables.
And you have amazing mediums helping with dedication. It is so lovely energy helping us to. And
we don't charge for our events. No one gets paid. There's an optional $5 donation that's used. We have to pay rent, of course, for every place we go. They don't let us use the facilities for free, so that all gets used up for the rent. And we have mediums, like Tanya said. We have a former director of the Berkeley Psychic Institute that comes frequently with us, some long-term healers. We've got some of the Reiki practitioners, pranic healing practitioners. We've even had some psychologists, psychiatrists have even come before, dentists, doctors. And these are all people that I think they come in the beginning because they're curious about the phenomena. And then when they see what we're doing and how hard we work and how hard everyone works for free in the giving of this, and they see the way people are helped, then they fall in love with the process and they come on their own free will in the spirit of giving.
I wouldn't say hard. It's a pleasure to serve God. This is so amazing.
It is a pleasure. Physically, it can be demanding, but it is a pleasure. Now, we'll typically have 20 to 25 people sitting around us, around the massage tables, our friends of the current, these wonderful folks that are so loyal and help us. And then out in the main room, we'll have anywhere from 35 to 60 or 70 people. And, of course, when we have 70 people, it can be a long night. The sessions may go from 7, sometimes 10, even past 10:30 to 11 and sometimes. But everyone gets seen. It's completely voluntary. And there's not a lot of hands-on healing. A lot of the spirits are just holding their hands over the people. There are some times when there's some hands-on healing. Of course, we never touch in a private place. And people are always asked permission whether or not we can place their hands there. And of course, to protect ourselves legally, Tanya and I both became pastors affiliated with the church, so that in the state of California, the laws prohibit us to do laying on of the hands. So we're non-denominational, and we're trying to respect the laws of Spiritism, and yet practically be able to implement these kinds of healing techniques, within our society.
It's quite interesting as you're saying this, because as we just mentioned, we come from Brazil, and every year we are there, and it's amazing because it's very similar to the works that are being done there in many, many centers. And this is the beauty of it, because many people think they need to go elsewhere to find the healing. And that's what we tell here, the Spirit Side of Virginia. We used to tell the Spirit Side of Baltimore. Healing is everywhere. It's It's where your heart is and where the hearts of people are as well. It does not depend on a specific person, though we know John of God is a great healing medium. People often don't know that there are even greater healing mediums in Brazil. Those who see sometimes. I was in the countryside of São Paulo, in a city named Franca, and João Berbel, he sees like 3,000 to 5,000 people a day.
Wow.
And it's unbelievable. The only difference is that the reason why he doesn't get to be well known outside of Brazil is because he's very spiritist, and he does not allow people to profit or benefit from the healing works, like doing pilgrimages, etc., etc. So that's the main difference. But overall, there are so many healing mediums. We were in another small city in the state of Minas Gerais, and she used to know. It's actually a woman. We rarely talk about women being healing mediums, but here it is, a great woman named Magda, and she's in the city of Betim, in nearby Belo Horizonte, the capital of Minas Gerais, the state where Chico Xavier used to be. And we were there last year, and she had, we've seen people coming with a huge problems that were visible to our eyes, and after the healing session, which is under the Spiritist framework, those things disappeared and they changed, and the Spirit Counseling really went to the core of the root. As Tanya said, it's all about inner transformation as well, and the Spirits were also recommending it. And we experienced actually a specific healing session when Magda, was right there at the at a meeting where a man who worked with Chico Xavier for more than 60 years, Arnaldo Rocha, he is now discarnated, but last year he was still here in the incarnated, and he used to be the counselor of the spirits who came and were obsessing people. And there was a patient who was a drug addict, and Arnaldo Rocha, the coordinator, turned to the healing medium, Magda, and said, now you can operate. You can allow the spirits to work and do surgery on him. And there was a whole spiritual transfusion of the blood of the person to release all the toxins. And it was a very powerful treatment done in this teenage person. And it was quite amazing. So everywhere you go, there are many possibilities. It's just that we need to find the right place for us. We have here.
Well, there are components of disobsession with our work, but we do it somewhat secretly because a lot of the culture here does not understand much about disobsession. In fact, we're starting to give classes to let people know about the practice, but we notice that the spirits silently sometimes do it, or the spirit may materialize for a minute and they're then ushered away, and the spirits are trying to handle it so as not to draw a lot of attention to it. But we're in complete agreement with you that that's a very large component of healing, would be the spiritual disobsession. And in many cases, that has to take place before the person can heal.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have last Wednesday a family, a young couple with a two beautiful child, and they were almost in that situation you relate. It was amazing. You're talking almost the same situation we had last Wednesday. And we see what God's working through, using who are in service to serve others, and we have some amazing healing in our group. People came once. One woman, Julia, she has a tumor in her right arm, and she said she went to the table and she said, I came more with a curiosity. And then the next day when she wake up, she said the spiritual doctor asked her what she must need while she was there. And he told her, pray and ask God to heal you. And she said when she wake up in the next morning, the tumor was disappeared. It's not even there. She went to the doctor. The doctor said there's not explanation.
Yeah.
It's so many amazing. We have last Wednesday a woman, Michelle. She wrote to me on Facebook, and she said my father is a terminal cancer. The doctor gave him only 8 months, and he went to the doctor and could not have a chemo because some conditioner is a lymphoma cancer all over his body, more concentrated in his abdomen. And she said, and she was in Brazilian Healing last Wednesday, and she said she was praying. The message was forgiveness about forgiveness from the gospel according to the Spiritism book. And she said that message helped her what she came there. And when she came to the table, she asked the doctors to heal her father or doing something, or if he, like the doctor said, he could not be here for a long time, help him to release most of that, to come back to the spiritual home better. And then she said the next day he does not know she was there for him. And on Thursday, he went to the doctor. In the afternoon, he called her. The doctor was amazing because the most tumor in his abdomen was shrunk and gave him more time to live.
Exactly.
And she was really blessed and with grateful for God, for Jesus. As always, I said to people, please do not thank us for anything because God and Jesus is the healer.
But Vanessa, we don't give a lot of testimonials and share them because we also don't want to promote ourselves in any way. We don't want to also build any false hopes because we don't have the ability to know who's going to receive the healing and who's not going to receive the healing that they want. Now, we believe everyone gets a healing at a spiritual and a soul level, but the hardest question that we have to sometimes try to answer is why do some people get healed and why do others not?
Exactly. And by the way, Greg, as you were rightfully saying, and Tanya, we can't really brag about ourselves because, as you said before, it's like, it's not on us. And plus, we know the rules of the game. The minute we start shifting our vibration to vanity and ego, etc., we shift the spirit companion, and then the results really change, as we all know. So, but the point here, we know when we are talking about here, we're just sharing some experiences, just so we talk about how the work goes, and it really goes hand in hand with what really happens for sure. And it's important for people to share. I'll never forget when Jesus once told one of these of the people whom he healed, he said, "Now you go back and tell people what happened to you." And of course, he meant it in an education. He was an educator for humanity. He was telling the man, saying, look, don't keep it to yourself. Share not only your experience, but also do your job, because we've been healed as well in some way and form. And now here we are. We're still healing, but we are sharing the experience of our own healing, like Tanya mentioned about herself and you yourself. So we could tell to the listener, it's important that we don't await to reach perfection to reach out to others who are in need. That's what Tanya and Greg are doing. They are really sharing their experiences, not only the ones that happen directly to them, but the gifts that God has granted to them. They are multiplying the talents in the beautiful work of the Brazilian spiritual healing. It's not the end. We have a last part for this interview. After the break, we're going to talk about a little more on this work and a beautiful message that was given by Emmanuel to Chico Xavier in one of his mediumistic messages, so we can discuss a little bit more with Greg and Tanya.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Come and listen to our CD, Unfolding Our Spiritual Nature, Path of Harmony, by Dr. Raul Teixeira. The CD has questions and answers on euthanasia, suicide, pain relief, past life therapy, prayer and better attunement, law and affinity, the spirit world, raising our thoughts, and much more. You can purchase the CD by visiting SSB online bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Louise, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, the Spiritist Therapy, who doesn't need it, as the Spirit Dr. Andrea Luiz says in one of his books, Conduta Espírita, or Spiritist Conduct, he says, the passes, the water, and everything else is about the spiritual therapeutics. And we're here discussing the true application of it all. It's beyond the theory because people are suffering. They need more than discussions about the universe, etc. It's very important. I say this because many listeners have been asking us, bring physicists, etc. Say, great, we will. But I tell you, we have a pipeline of topics that listeners have been asking us, and we're following through what the mentors also promote and propose for Kardec Radio, and it's mostly about reaching out to the people who are suffering. Of course, we will bring discussions on quantum physics, etc., but it has your own time for us to bring it up at Kardec Radio. For the time being, we are here discussing with Greg and Tanya from the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group in Sacramento, California, about the great works that are being done there. And, there are many centers in the United States and in the United Kingdom and Canada that also promote those experiences. All you need to do is write to us. We'll direct to you to their website so you can find out more about where to locate your center. In a message by Andrea Luiz, he talks about whenever appropriate, he says, add the use of the spiritually magnetized water, the self-pass, and the emission of helping vibrations at a distance through prayer. These are other modalities that are also important. Not necessarily you need to be present there if you're not in the group, but you can receive wherever you are, because we know we have it's a non-local experience, as the current physicists talk about it. It's a non-local experience. So if you're not physically there, it doesn't mean you are not in touch with the experience. But before we continue discussing, we'd like to outline few interesting aspects of the message brought in by the wonderful Spirit Emmanuel, the mentor of Chico Xavier. In one of his mediumistic meetings, Chico Xavier received a message from Emmanuel about the three essential elements of a mediumistic meeting. We're going to read very quickly to you some of the aspects of this message. You can read the whole message in the most recent issue of the Spiritist magazine. It's pages 12 and 13, and this is actually the first time this message comes into English. Emmanuel says, much like a service unit in the terrestrial plane, the essential success of a mediumistic meeting requires three essential elements: the director, the medium, and the assistant. In this group of triple strength, we have command, obedience, and cooperation. The first one is the brain that directs. The second is the heart that helps. The third is the arm that helps. Without the security and the prudence of the brain, we'll be thrown into irremediable imbalance. Without the caring and receptivity of the heart, we will suffer the insult of despair. Without the devotion and the decision of the arm, we will suffer from inertia. However, in order for those three elements to function efficiently, three requirements will be necessary for a plan of action: trust, goodwill, harmony. Harmony translates into discipline, order, and respect. Trust, that signifies faith, optimism, and sincerity. Goodwill, that expresses study, understanding, and spontaneous service to the neighbor. Dear listener, there is more to this message. This is not it. But we're going to stop here because in the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group, there we find these elements: trust in God, in the good spirits, in our inner divine nature, goodwill, and harmony. Can you tell us more, Greg and Tanya, about these elements and how they are essential for you to operate successfully in your group?
Well, they're absolutely essential, and thank you for helping to draw that comparison to the beautiful words of Emmanuel. One of the reasons why we have people coming back and working so hard to help us without being promoted or benefiting in any way is because they see the true benefit of service and working in the sense of goodwill. They experience the power of prayer. And we can get into prayer. We don't do prayer for a ritual. A prayer, should come from the heart. Many times it doesn't have to be memorized or planned. However, with that said, we also do say traditional prayers, one being the Lord's Prayer. Why? Only because there's so many people who know it. And there are times when the energy needs to be raised in the meeting. And so if someone starts saying a prayer that many people know, everyone's mind can become a little more clear and they become in sync, and then the vibration can be raised. Mm-hmm. So there are specific prayers you can say from the heart. There's prayers you can pray to God. You can also ask for, the help of the good spirits or the mentors. And then sometimes you can say a prayer to merely raise the vibration, which is, very, very, very important with a group meeting like this.
Exactly. So, Tanya and Greg, we don't want to let you go, but time has come, and people are asking about contact. How can they access the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group? The website, we know there's a Facebook page. Is there a telephone number you could share?
A good phone number would be 916-880-0701.
701 916-880-0701. And for you have a Facebook page, but you also have a website.
We do. The website, as you know, I'm guilty, like so many of us, of not completing the website. So the website is just a very small thing, placeholder as we call it. The best place, probably because Tanya works on this every day, is the Facebook page. So that's, Facebook.com and then just Brazilian Spiritual Healing.
Okay, Brazilian. It's very easy. If people Google Brazilian Spiritual Healing, Sacramento, California, they're going to find a way to contact you guys. What would be your final comments for the listener at Kardec Radio today, Tanya and Greg?
I would want to say, be open. We are on an ocean of vibration and healing and happiness and a lot of blessing energy there. When we change our vibration, we will be tuned with all that God has been given to us, as the sun sends his light every day to us. Be open to this energy and be aware who you are, knowing that the healing has to come from your soul. And if the soul is healed, the body will be healed.
I'd like to add that if you're fighting a serious illness, one of the hardest things you can break is the mental anguish and depression that goes along with not only that feeding the illness, but in some cases was the cause of the illness. So try to do whatever you can to break the cycle of negative mental thoughts. The spirits tell us time and time again that our thoughts are so powerful. And words even more powerful because that's a materialization of the thought. So that's why we say work on your inner reform, to work on the thoughts. And then also the fact that the spirits, Vanessa, can talk to us, the fact that we can have these healings with the hand of the spirits, what that is, that's proof of the existence of the soul and continuance of the soul after our body perishes. This life on earth, this particular one life, is a short amount of time. Once people realize that we're in this game for eternity, then you can start worrying about your soul and your long-term thoughts. And many times the body can become more healed just based on getting away from being too concerned about the materialistic world that we live in.
Exactly. So we're very happy to have you here at Kardec Radio today and to know the works that are being done there. We need it all the more. And we'll again pass on the number for people who'd like to contact the Brazilian Spiritual Healing Group, 916-880-0701. Just call 916-880-0701. If you're elsewhere in the United States, contact the website of the United States Spiritist Council, spiritist.us, and you can have a hold of all the centers that are elsewhere in the United States. If you are in the UK, you can go to buss.org. .uk to get to know more about the centers in the United Kingdom, and in Canada you can contact the Canadian Spiritist Council.com. We are going to give a short break, but the show is not over. We're very thankful to Greg and Tanya. Thank you again for being with us, and we hope to have you soon again here with us, Greg and Tanya.
Yeah, thank you.
May God bless you.
God bless all of you.
Thank you. God bless all of us. So we're going to give a short break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Listen to our sister radio, Buzzera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children 2 paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here. We've just talked about the Spiritist Therapy, but it's not over. If you want more references, just go to the spiritistmagazine.com. The most recent issue talks about some of its features. In the past ones, we talk about passes, the spiritually magnetized water, etc. If you want more information, just email to kardecradio@gmail.com. We'll be happy to assist you in your questions. Right now, it's a part in which the team at Kardec Radio has produced great pieces of instruction, education, and inspiration for all of us. We're going to begin with Kirsten DeMello talking about the excesses in life and the law of destruction according to the Spirit's book, followed by some explanation on excerpts of the Gospel according to Spiritism by Luis Sergio Marotta, and then a beautiful meditation prayer, music by James Marotta, and then an excerpt, question 76 to 83 of the Spirit's book, produced by our friends John DeRosa and Steve Shepard. And at the very end, we always leave the best for the last, which is the Spiritist education for children and youth. And we say the best, not in the sense that the others are not, but saying, spiritual education for kids and youth is of the essence. And Bernadette Leal has been doing a great job. By the way, in the Spiritist magazine, in every issue, you'll find some of her texts, which are actually part of Kardec Radio shows, giving tips and instructions to parents and educators regarding it. Today, she's going to talk about how to teach consideration to children. Enjoy this, because at the very end, we'll be back here. We're still live if you have questions. If you're in the chat room of Kardec Radio, if you want to send an email or Facebook message, we're still here. We have time to answer to your questions, to be in touch, and to bring some nourishment to your soul.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Spiritist Moment. I'm Kirsten DeMello. We are studying Part 3 of the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. We are studying specifically the divine natural laws, and even more specifically, we are studying the fifth law, the law of destruction. In previous weeks, dear friends, we have talked about the law of destruction, and we've learned that there's balance, believe it or not, even in the law of destruction. And we learned that there's a limit for everything. And we quote from Answer 735, the Spirits tell us that all destruction that exceeds the limits of need is a violation of God's law. But what's interesting, we talk about our individual needs and the needs of each one of us and the limits of these needs. It's interesting because we've already learned that from the Spirits tell us that many times we create unnecessary needs. So it's noteworthy for us to take a step back and reassess ourselves and making sure that the needs that we are fulfilling are not needs that already are in excess. Because we know that anything that is in excess is a violation of God's laws. Why? Because everything must have balance and order. And the Spirits have educated us that even in the animal kingdom, there's balance. Because animals do not eat or kill beyond their needs. So let us go to question 736. And Kardec asked the Spirits, do those cultures that carry their scrupulousness to excess regarding the destructions of animals have any specific merit? The Spirits answer, quote, such excess is a sentiment that in itself is praiseworthy, but it becomes abusive, and its merit is neutralized by other kinds of abuse. They act more out of superstitious fear than true humaneness. What really calls our attention in this particular answer is when the Spirits tell us that, and we could see that initially the sentiment, the feeling in itself is praiseworthy, but it becomes abusive, and they tell us that the merit is neutralized by other kinds of abuse. So it's interesting that we may set out to fight for a cause But at times, sometimes our actions neutralize the very merit in fighting for that cause. For example, thousands of hundreds of people and over hundreds of years have fought for different religions in the name of God, but yet have killed one another. A perfect example that you wind up neutralizing any merit that you may have had in the beginning because you wind up causing more damage and abuse and hurting others because it's excessiveness. And this is what really draws our attention. The spirits are calling our attention in this, that we should go back and look first at ourselves. Firstly, to see if our intentions are good, why we are undertaking a certain cause, and why we are striving to help propagate that cause, for instance, religion or a belief, or even perhaps something as simple or not so simple, a cause to fighting for breast cancer or other different types of causes that exist. And can we imagine in the fight for wanting to find the cure for cancer, we wind up giving cancer to other people or killing people? It seems absurd, but at times that is unfortunately the things that happen in our lives because we are not yet perfect. Another area, another red flag that the spirits are really just throwing out there for us is that when we undertake a cause, when we choose and desire to fight or strive for something in our lives, first is our sentiment and is it good? What are our intentions? And why do we continue to do that particular thing? Is it because we want to honor God, or is it because we want to see ourselves in a high position, or we want to see or make ourselves look like saviors to others in the world? It is quite profound, and it merits us taking a second look within ourselves to do some meditation and inner reflection and being more transparent before God and transparent to ourselves to lead a more happier and congruent life. So, dear friends, we encourage you to go and read this particular chapter and the entire Spirit's book. And until next time, we wish you many blessings.
Well, dear listener, here we are once again reading together the second chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is about the future life. Well, Kardec tells us that by the time Jesus was here on earth, the Jews had a very vague idea of what the afterlife could be. And Jesus, as a great master he was, decided not to tell us everything, following that didactic process that had been coming since the Old Testament, in which the idea of the resurrection, for example, was only tackled a few times in a very vague way. Allan Kardec says, we quote, "The Jews believed in angels whom they considered to be privileged beings of the creation. They did not know, however, that men and women could one day become angels and so participate in the same happiness. According to them, the observance of God's law would bring worldly recompense, the supremacy of their nation, and victory over their enemies. The public calamities and downfalls were a punishment for disobedience to these laws. Moses could say no more than this to those who were mostly shepherds or ignorant people who needed to be touched, before anything else, by worldly things. But as if predicting the great era in which science would reach a very high position in human history, just like in the prophecy of the prophet Daniel in the chapter 12 of his book in the Old Testament, when he said that science would come to an apex, Spiritism came along with the enlightening movement that later would give way to the 20th century, a century that would forever change and revolutionize old paradigms in science, philosophy, and religion. Then this triangle is exactly what Spiritism is based upon, uniting spiritual revelation guided by ethical principles as to the ones in the Gospel, and earthly science by being independent in terms of thought from any sect or academic political epistemologies. Allan Kardec continues, we quote, Spiritism has come to complete this point, as well as many others touched on by the teachings of Christ, now that man is sufficiently mature as to be able to learn the truth. With Spiritism, a future life is no longer an article of faith, a mere hypothesis, but becomes a material reality as facts demonstrate, because those who have described it to us have all been eyewitnesses, so that not only is doubt no longer possible, but also anyone of whatever intelligence is able to get an idea of its many varied aspects, in the same way that we can imagine what a country we have never visited is like by reading a detailed description of it. But this description of the future life is circumstantiated to such an extent, the conditions of existence for those who reside there, be they happy or unhappy, are so rational, that we are bound to agree that it could not be otherwise, that it represents the true justice of God. Well, dear listener, I am speaking from a country where hundreds of people in the 20th century witnessed all kinds of spiritist phenomena, be them affected from physical mediumship or mental intellectual mediumship. And one of the leading mediums we usually rely on for all the moral and intellectual ballast he held was Chico Xavier. Regarding the subject of proofs we may have about the afterlife, many of us immediately recall the physical mediumship with its astonishing range of phenomena, but sometimes we also forget about the virtues of the mental or intellectual mediumship. In Brazil, we took part in a research that now is being carried out by its starter, our friend Marco Polo de Spirito, a lawyer and also a skilled researcher of Spiritism, Spiritist Epistemology, and the books received by Chico Xavier. In particular, this one, which is entitled 2,000 Years Ago. It's a story that takes place at the time of Jesus, and in this book, at first, we highlighted more than 70 topics to be checked in terms of historical research. Well, my friend, we have had amazing surprises as to the strength and power of Chico's mediumship. The book publication is dated back to the late 30s, and there are pieces of information, many of them, that could only be accessed today through modern researches and the use of the Internet. Well, my friend, apart from all these technical and philosophical details on the subject of the afterlife, we have to understand that by being aware that life goes on after the death of our bodies, the whole society will change. Medicine, sociology, politics, science itself, the relations, human relations, will change. And we believe it, of course, for the better. But until we get there, there's a long way, because spiritual truths cannot be revealed to us without our being prepared for that, psychologically and morally prepared. That's why, until today, the pathway of discoveries in the realm of the spirituality is still an individual trip, the narrow door through which we have to pass. Thank you so much. Sitting in silence, feeling the gentle
caress of the breeze. It is running through my hair. Nice waves of warmness, rhythm the heartbeat in great harmony. So sweet, it's so beautiful. Time has just stopped now. Looks like I'll never need anything else but this holy bliss. All the universe is now part of me, and I am a part of it. I am one with life. I can clearly see that's all I need to be. Feeling so happy, being a small part of something so big. It is really wonderful. Sitting in silence, feeling the gentle caress of the breeze.
The following partial recording is from The Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec. The Origin and Nature of Spirits. Question number 76. How may we define spirits?
We can say that spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. They populate the universe beyond the material world.
Question number 77. Are spirit beings distinct from the divinity? Or are they only emanations or portions of the divinity? The reason why they are called the children of God.
Good gracious, of course they are God's work. It is like a man who builds a machine, for example. The machine is the man's work, but it is not the man himself. You know that when individuals make nice and useful things, they call them their children, their creation. Well then, it is the same with God. We are God's children because we are products of the divine work.
Question number 78. Did spirits have a beginning, or have they existed from all eternity like God?
If spirits had no beginning, they would be equal to God. On the contrary, they are God's creation and subject to the divine will. God has existed from all eternity. That is incontestable. But we know nothing as to when and how we spirits were created. You could say that we had no beginning if you mean that since God is eternal, then God must have always and unceasingly created spirits. Nevertheless, When and how each of us was created individually, I repeat, no one knows. It is a mystery.
Question number 79. Since there are two general elements in the universe, that is, the intelligent element and the material element, could we say that spirits are formed from the intelligent element, while inert bodies are formed from the material element?
Obviously, spirits are individualizations of the intelligent principle, just as bodies are individualizations of the material principle. It is the time and manner of this formation that we do not know.
Question number 80. Is the creation of spirits continuous, or did it only occur at the beginning of time?
It is continuous, which means that God has never ceased creating them.
Question number 81. Are spirits formed spontaneously, or do they proceed from one another?
Like all other creatures, God creates them by the divine will. But let me repeat once more, their origin is a mystery.
Question number 82. Is it correct to say that spirits are immaterial?
How can we define something when we have no terms for comparison, and when we only have an insufficient language at our disposal? Can one who is born blind define light? Immaterial is not the right word. Incorporeal would be more precise, because you should understand that since it is a creation, a spirit must be something. A spirit is quintessentialized matter. Thus, you have no analogies for describing it. It is also so etherealized that your senses cannot perceive it.
Author's footnote to quintessentialized matter. Quintessence means fifth essence, the pure and concentrated essence of a substance. Author's remarks for question number 82. We say that spirits are immaterial because their essence differs from everything we label as matter. A nation of blind people would not have any words for expressing light and its effects. Those who are in fact born blind imagine that they perceive everything through their hearing, smell, taste, and touch, but they would not be able to comprehend ideas that came to them through the sense they lack. In the same way, we too are blind regarding the essence of supra-human beings. We cannot define them except by an effort involving our imagination, or by making comparisons that will always be imperfect. Question number 83. Do spirits have an end? We can understand that the principle from which they emanate is eternal, but what we are asking is whether or not their own individuality will come to an end, and whether or not, like material bodies, at some given time in the near or distant future, the element from which they have been formed will disintegrate and return to the mass from which it came. It is difficult to understand how something that had a beginning would not also have an end.
There are many things you do not understand because your intelligence is limited, but that is no reason to reject them. A child does not understand everything that its parents understand, nor does an uneducated person understand all that a scholar understands. We are saying that spirits' individual existences never come to an end. That is all we can say for now.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education in Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and Spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today we will answer the following question. Nowadays, there are many children and teenagers who struggle to show consideration for others. How can I help them to be more considerate? Consideration is an important step toward compassion. In other words, we first need to be able to take into consideration other people's feelings, opinion, or needs so that we can move toward action. How can we help someone if we do not care about him or have no consideration for what he is going through? So, when we teach children and teenagers about being considerate, we are also helping them to have a more compassionate heart. Consideration is a virtue that needs to start at home. Children will learn by observing their parents showing consideration for their children, relatives, friends, people they meet, and also for animals. Paul, the Apostle, reminds us about taking into consideration the interests of others in his letter to the Philippians when he said, "Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." Nowadays, many children and adults still struggle with being considerate. Most of us know how good it feels when someone takes into consideration our opinion, needs, and understands us. But in many situations, this is a one-way street. We expect people to be considerate toward us, and we forget about showing the same consideration toward them. In children and teenagers' case, their struggle is even greater because they go through an egotistic phase in which they believe that the world revolves around them. Jesus was a great example of being considerate. He did not judge others because he took into consideration people's background, their limitations, knowledge, and experience. Just like a parent who deeply knows and loves his children unconditionally, consideration has to do also with tolerance of others' beliefs and not judging someone whose religion or spiritual beliefs are different than ours. Question 138 of the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec explains, "Every belief is worthy of respect when it is sincere and when it leads to the practice of goodness." Jesus invited us to take a look at ourselves first when he said, "And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the plank in your own eye?" Or, how can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me remove the speck that is in your eye," when you yourself do not see the plank that is in your own eye? But how can we help children and teenagers to be more considerate? Well, the first step is to inspire them to care about the people around them and also what happens around them. It is very common to hear teenagers saying, "I don't care," or "whatever." Well, words are powerful, dear listeners. "I don't care" is a negative affirmation, and if said frequently, it becomes real, a statement that your brain and yourself start to accept as true. And after a while, your child will stop caring about a variety of things. They don't care if they hurt someone, if a person needs help, if you think differently, if they don't have good grades. Many teenagers and even parents become desensitized, surrounding themselves by the "I do not care" generation. In fact, this careless attitude goes beyond our youth. It extends to our society too. Sadly, we continually see a lot of pain, poverty, and injustice in the world because we still have too many people that just do not care. So, when your child says, "I don't care," do not let it become a habit. Make a nice comment in a calming voice saying, for example, "But I do care because I love you, and I know that deep inside you care." So, parents and educators, please do care if you notice that a child does not care. One way of helping children to show consideration is by practicing with them on a daily basis how they can show that they care for someone in their lives. Then together, think of ways of showing it. For instance, you can show to someone that you care by giving him a hug, being a helper, writing a get well card, being a good listener, sharing a toy, cheering him up, being polite, or showing appreciation. As children practice it, it will slowly become second nature, and consequently, as they focus on others and their needs, children will no longer be the center of attention. You can start teaching about consideration at a very early age. As a teacher, I have taught and practiced with my students to show that they care about what I am about to say. For a while, they were struggling to stay quiet and listen when I needed their attention. So, we had a conversation about it, and I expressed that I felt that they didn't care when I was trying to talk. Plus, we discussed about how they would feel if someone did the same thing to them. Now, after some practice, instead of me saying, "Quiet, please," all I have to say is, "Please show me that you care." And they stop talking, sit crisscross, look at me, and are ready to listen. Right there, they are learning to be considerate. Kardec Radio listeners, consideration is a valuable virtue that all of us should practice. Expressing a sincere concern for others shows that we are brothers and sisters connected by the Creator. So today, we would like to invite all our listeners to act in a kind way by showing that you care about someone close to you, and even going a little bit further by also extending the same kindness or help to a stranger if you have a chance. We can make a difference in someone's life every day. As Dwight Eisenhower once said, "Though force can protect in an emergency, only justice, fairness, consideration, and cooperation can finally lead the man to the dawn of eternal peace." Thanks for listening to Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer in this segment, please email them to Kardec at kardecradio.com.
Dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed the whole program. And right now, before we tell you about the next week's show, we'd like to invite you for one of the most important features of the Spiritist Therapy, the prayer. And this time, we're going to rely upon a prayer that is in the Gospel According to Spiritism, Chapter 28, a collection of Spiritist prayers. It's actually items 48 and 49. You'll be surprised because we're talking about therapy, and as Jesus said, the first step into therapy is, first and foremost, reconciliation with ourselves and our enemies. And Kardec says we should give the benefit that was granted to our enemies, believe it or not. He says, not wishing one's enemies ill is being only half charitable. True charity consists in wishing what is good for them and being happy for the benefits they receive. It's a good exercise for the soul. It's about the inner transformation that Greg and Tanya were telling us, something that we need to put in practice. Let us then pray with Allan Kardec to the favor that was granted to those whom we consider temporarily our enemies, because sooner or later we are destined to become friends. Let us raise our thoughts to our dear Creator, to our loving Mother, Father God. Dear God, in your justice, you have seen fit to make the person whom we consider family a joyful heart. We give you thanks for it, in spite of the ill that he or she has done to us, or wants to do to us. If he or she uses to humiliate us, we will accept it as a trial of our charity. Good spirits, watching over us, do not allow us to feel any unhappiness over this. Keep us from the envy and jealousy that only degrades. Instead, inspire us with the generosity that uplifts. Humiliation lies in evil, not in the good, and we know that sooner or later justice will be served to all according to their deeds. Thank you, dear Lord, and may all humanity and all the living beings on the earth feel the grace of your providence. May especially the ones who are suffering receive relief, medication, caring, healing to their hearts. And so be it. Next week, we're going to continue promoting some nourishment through Kardec Radio. We're going to bring here Dr. and Reverend Karen Herrick. She is specialized in helping dysfunctional families. We're going to talk about the spiritual, emotional, social aspects of dysfunctional families. We need really to heal our families as the cell of our society. Better society needs a healthy family. Right now, we wish you lots of blessings wherever you are in the world, no matter if you're listening to us live or if you're listening to us on demand. After all, Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.